Welcome, everyone. Good morning. This is the Telarus Tuesday call for February 11th, 2020. Here's a shout out to all of our partners and suppliers attending the very first Telarus Innovation Conference of 2020, going on all day today in Orange County, California at the Nixon Library, with, of course, the exception of a suspiciously missing 18 and a half minutes. All new content, tremendous new training tools and tips. It's all coming your way. More about that in a moment. Some breaking news this morning. The long-awaited merger between Sprint and T-Mobile has finally won approval from a federal court judge over the objections of several state attorneys general. Sprint shares, if you have them, are up 73% this morning on the news. I'm Doug Miller, the voice of Telarus, and today's call features Telarus Co-Founder and Chief Product Officer Patrick Oborn, along with the Telarus VP of Business Development for Cybersecurity, Dominique Singer. Patrick and Dom will present the fourth in our special Telarus series about our suppliers, who they are, what they offer, and how to determine the correct solutions for your clients among the many available options. Today's focus will be on cybersecurity, how to approach the discussion with clients, how to develop a sound security practice of your own, and with which specific Telarus providers. If you happen to miss last week's Telarus Tuesday call, Patrick joined us for that one as well, with a frank and open deep dive into the Telarus portfolio of global network connectivity and SD-WAN providers. And in addition to the available recording of that call in your Telarus partner back office, Patrick's also been putting this valuable information from this series of supplier introductions into a blog post, which partners can use to educate themselves about our suppliers, as well as to develop compelling sales discussions to conduct with your clients. You really should check this out. You can find all of the information at telarus.com/resources. Today, we invite you to please log into the video link and live chat platform. You'll see all of today's valuable information, and you can submit questions and comments directly to Patrick and Dom for review during our Q&A session at the call's conclusion. All right, let's jump into it. A few months ago, Telarus COO Richard Murray joined our call. He announced the 2020 Telarus President's Club event to be held next March in St. Lucia. It's a country in the Caribbean, north of Venezuela, between Martinique and St. Vincent. What a beautiful place to celebrate your success. And our Telarus suppliers will make it easy for you to qualify for this year's award. You can either sell a combined $100K in Telarus MRR or sell a specified amount with one of the individual sponsoring suppliers shown here on your screen. As you can see from the list, there are many terrific and easy ways to qualify. You don't want to miss the opportunity to join Telarus. It's happening next year, March 7th through the 10th in St. Lucia for the 2020 President's Club. This week, if you happen to be in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, we'll be at the IT Expo event. Come and see us. Telarus is there at booth number 920. We would love to take time to discuss your business. The IT Expo runs today through Friday. We hope to see you there. A couple of exciting regional events taking place this week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 12th in Atlanta. It's Business and Bourbon live with Ronell Richards. This is a live event based on the wildly popular LinkedIn segment hosted by Ronell Richards. Attendees will taste some amazing whiskeys while participating in Q&A with Ronell, and with some amazing influencers in business, marketing, social media, and personal branding. Our sponsors for this event include 8x8, NTT, Greenhouse Data, and RSI. We hope to see you Wednesday from 5:30 until 8:30 p.m. in Atlanta for Business and Bourbon Live. Then next Monday, February 18th, Telarus presents our Contact Center Boot Camp at the Zoo in St. Louis, Missouri. From 10 a.m. until 3 p.m., Mitel, Genesis, and NICE in Contact will join Telarus for this in-depth training on contact center opportunities focused on WFO, AI, and other software tools and categories. Monday, St. Louis Zoo, CCAS. Don't miss it. And Telarus is wasting no time bringing our spectacular and transformative Telarus Innovation Conferences to partners around the country. Please plan to join us at an event near you for a day of training, networking, and activities that will transform your business. And we'll be giving away prizes at each event valued at more than $5,000. As mentioned earlier, our first TIC of the year is happening today in Orange County. Next up, the Telarus Innovation Conference travels to Houston next Thursday, February 20th at the Astorian. Then it's on to Columbus, Ohio on the following Thursday, February 27th at the Ohio State University Stadium. I would love to get a tour of that place. You will if you join us for the TIC. These will be immersive technology training experiences featuring outstanding training and content from our Telarus team and from many industry experts. So join us and take advantage of these tremendous opportunities to enhance your expertise and to build your business. It is the Telarus Innovation Conference. You can see our full schedule of events with all of Telarus's upcoming opportunities and register or RSVP for those at Telarus.com events. This week's training calendar features 4 excellent opportunities. First up today, beginning at noon Eastern, NITEL has the information you need to understand E-rate funding for schools, libraries, and rural healthcare customers. E-rate is huge every year after the holidays, and this webinar will demystify the E-rate program. What services are covered? How do customers apply for funding? And what's the difference between SPI and BEAR funding? NITEL has the answers. You can join their special E-rate training today at noon Eastern. Tomorrow, Wednesday, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern, plan to join CenturyLink for special training on their extremely popular Fiber Plus voice and data services. With symmetrical service up to 1 gig, your clients can improve customer experiences, back up data, share large files, and run cloud applications. This training will explain the end-to-end CenturyLink provisioning process, making it easy for you to offer this powerful solution to your clients. It's CenturyLink Fiber Plus training. It happens tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Right afterward, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, Spectrum will present valuable training on Spectrum Ethernet services. Help your clients get more from their applications, faster file transfers with dedicated symmetrical bandwidth up to 10 gigs. Spectrum's flexible Ethernet services are easy to manage and scale as needs change, and they are backed by end-to-end SLAs. It's unyielding performance for your customers' business demands. Special Spectrum training happens tomorrow, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then this Thursday, February 13th, beginning at 11 a.m. Eastern, Avaya is conducting their February Partner Update. Avaya will train on multiple topics, including their upcoming initiatives in partner programs, services, operations, and marketing, along with, of course, the latest in product news. Avaya is a leader in cloud, UC, contact center, and managed services. Join their February Partner Update Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern from Avaya. The details and registration links for these and for many other live and recorded learning opportunities are all in your Telarus Partner Back Office at agent.telarus.com. Let's make you some money while you do. Valuable spiffs happening to our Telarus partners in the new year. Here are some of the best. First up, from Nextiva. A 5X spiff is available on 36-month Nextiva sales. Sales over just $200 MRC earn a 3X or 4X with device rentals. Sales over $1,000 MRC will earn a 4X spiff or make it a 5X with device rentals. It's the Nextiva Winter Spiff, and it happens now through March 31st. And next, from Vonage, drive great CX, rule your market, and earn big rewards. This year, not hindsight, but rather foresight is 2020. And Vonage is offering spiffs of 5X MRR on all deals with a minimum 3-year term. You can also earn 3X MRR spiffs on all deals with a minimum 1-year term. A huge bonus to kick off the new year. Use your foresight to anticipate customer needs and experience and cash in with up to 5X MRR spiffs from Vonage. And finally, from NHC, New Horizon Communications, Stack 2020 Right, Stack NHC. New Horizon is offering 2x MRR bonuses on all network connectivity sales and on sales of all IP voice, including SIP, IP POTS, and IP PRI. There's also a bonus of $80 per seat on all UCaaS deals. NHC is the first complete communications stack provider, layering network access management and cloud-native overlay technologies. Stack 2020 Right, Stack NHC. These and many more fantastic deals from our suppliers. You can find them all at promo.telarus.com. As I mentioned earlier, today's call features co-founder and chief product officer from Telarus, Patrick Oborn, along with Telarus VP of Business Dev for Cybersecurity, Dominique Singer. Today is part 4 of our series. We are focused on cybersecurity, how to approach this discussion with clients, develop a sound security practice, and with which specific Telarus suppliers. Patrick and Dom, welcome back to the Telarus Tuesday call. Glad to have you both here.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Yeah, looking forward to this call.
Awesome. Well, Doug, thank you so much for setting the table. Again, just want to reiterate, promos, plural, .telarus.com is where you want to go. I actually saw a spiff there just yesterday for setting up a demo. So now the things have changed where you don't even have to make a sale to get a spiff. You just schedule a demo and show a customer. I think that's Vonage on their contact center. It's either Vonage 59 or InContact. One of those, I apologize, I should know this before opening my big pie hole. They'll pay you a 0.75x just for scheduling a successful demo. So a lot of cool stuff going on. It's a very, very exciting time here at Telarus, but really there's no area more exciting to our business than the cybersecurity portfolio. My guest today, Dominique Singer, is one of the few people who work at Telarus that I used to text like nonstop even before he worked at Telarus. In fact, he was such a huge asset to CenturyLink when he was supporting us on the channel side that I literally gave his cell phone number out to every person I met, and he didn't even work for us. I'm like, you need to talk to Dominic. He will help you not only understand what you need to do on cybersecurity, he'll help you understand how to position cybersecurity with your customers. And gosh, if you can so much as get him on the phone with one of your customers, the man will make sure that this is a locked and solid deal. He's highly intelligent, but he has a very unique blend of social skill and ability to not talk over someone, which is very uncommon in the cybersecurity industry or any industry that's highly technical. So what we're going to talk about today is basically we're going over the whole entire Telarus security portfolio. Again, I start with the disclaimer that if you are a vendor and I leave your name out on one, I apologize. There's a lot to unpack here. And last but not least, we're going to conclude by showing you some resources of places you can go, tools you can download so that you can get information even after this call is over. I want to start today's call out just by telling a quick story. A month ago, I was in London at the Channel Partners Evolution Europe edition. And the very first speaker at that event, as you'll see here on this next slide, his name was James Ratcliffe of Ratcliffe IT. He's a security VAR in London. And he started off by basically spotlighting how easy it is today to be a cyber criminal. In fact, this is a picture I took of his slide from the gallery. And just like we're gonna talk about your to-do list to make your customers' security posture hardened, the to-do list that you need to do to keep your customer's name out of the newspaper, he had a to-do list that he went and got from a black hat hacking conference. And the list went a little something like this. Step 1, choose a target. Oh, by the way, here's a website you can go that will help scan the internet looking for soft targets. Number 2, gain access to the network. Oh, by the way, here's a website you can go that can do port scans. Number 3, steal domain admin credentials. Oh, here's a website that you can go that will actually help you do that. Step 4, identify critical infrastructure. Step 5, create a bespoke ransomware package. Step 6, delete, encrypt, or uninstall all of the backups in the Active Directory. That's fun. Step 7, launch the attack while the admins are sleeping, so that by the time their incident response kicks in, you still have 7 hours to 6 hours before any humans actually will try to stop you. Number 8, watch the world burn. Number 9, receive payment for all my hard work. Right? And all of the tools needed to accomplish that 9-step checklist are all publicly available for free on the dark web. So you no longer have to be a cyber criminal to be a cyber criminal. All you have to do is be someone who's broke, who wants money from rich people, and is willing to break the law and receive Bitcoin. So basically, any criminal, not only like in your local neighborhood, any criminal on planet Earth can now get in this business with literally no startup costs. So when I talk to people about cybersecurity, I think that people need to understand that much like Game of Thrones, where the White Walkers were coming and they were building an army, while the humans were fighting amongst themselves, the non-humans were creating a massive army to invade all of the human kingdoms, not just the Northern Kingdom. So there is a massive, massive army of bad guys coming. They're already here, as a matter of fact. And the days that you have as a trusted technology advisor, your value, if you can understand the basics of cybersecurity, your value is going to increase 1,000-fold to your customers, more than you could ever do on network or UCAS or anything else. So last week, just to go back, we talked a little bit about the pyramid of cloud transformation. We talked a little bit about internet access and SD-WAN being the foundation upon which you build your cloud applications, with security being the wrapper around all of it, with your data living in Pharaoh's tomb at the center of that pyramid. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that security layer. But if you look at the total amount of security products that encompass that layer, as you'll see on the next slide, it is overwhelming. This is why we have Dominique Singer to help step us through the technology transformation process and to be able to talk about some security. So security is really broken into lots of different steps. So don't let this world of security confuse you or confuse your customers. Dominic is going to talk to us a little bit about what actually cybersecurity means. It doesn't mean all of these products that you're looking at. What it means is, number 1, a strategy. Number 2, a strategy turns into a plan. And with the plan, that turns into product. So if your customers start asking you about product, you have to know we've got to take this conversation backwards, up the chain, back up into the strategy session. But when we talk about cybersecurity, Dominic, what we're actually talking about is risk. Can you just tell us a little bit what the fundamental steps are to actually managing risk, which is actually managing cybersecurity?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Any good cybersecurity program has to start with risk management. And some businesses say that they've done this or that they try to do it and they've got a handle around it. And it's something that needs to happen continuously. Threats change over time, as do the risks. And risk is really the intersection between understanding your critical assets, understanding the threat landscape, and understanding the exposure of those assets to the threats. And so the most important first step, and it's really difficult, especially as customers move to the cloud, is identifying the critical assets. What are those critical assets? Is it data? Is it systems? Is it people? Is it facilities? A combination of all of the above. After you've identified those critical assets, then the next thing you have to do is you've got to assign a value to those critical assets. And what, again, we're showing you here is this is the right way to start about cybersecurity. Just like Patrick said, instead of starting with products and saying, hey, we've got a problem we need to solve, let's go buy a product for it. Instead, take a step back, really do a thorough evaluation across the organization, identify those critical assets,
Dominic,
then
are
you
you still with
assign the
us?
value. What was that, Patrick? Then we move on to the next step.
I don't hear Dominic.
Oh, you can't hear me?
I'm sure he will log back in as soon as he can rejoin. Doug, can you hear me?
Hey,
Patrick, you sound great. Dominic sounded good too. Dom, you still there?
I am. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you both. Go right ahead.
Okay, cool. Then after you've identified the value of those critical assets, you would then take the next step, which is going to hopefully pop up here. You identify the impact or loss of harm to those assets. So just taking a step, right? This is the smart way to think about protecting your organization. You don't look from the outside in. You don't look at just the threats. You first look at your assets. What are those crown jewels you need to protect? Then you assign a value. And now you think, okay, if something were to happen to those critical assets, what would happen to our organization? What would be the impact? And this is where you get into a business impact analysis and you start doing continuity planning, disaster recovery, those kind of things. I like the joke from somebody out there who thinks that we were hacked, and I would assure you that's not the case. And then we move to the next step, step 4, which is you identify how likely is it for that impact to actually happen to that asset. And now after you have identified those 4 steps, then you put together a mitigation plan. And what we mean by a mitigation plan is you identify the right countermeasures. You identify the right money and resources that may be applied to protecting those assets, to detecting when those assets are compromised, to responding to those compromises, and then recovering from those compromises. And that's risk management in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, Dominic, we're going to talk a little bit now about the actual framework, which goes into putting a sound cybersecurity strategy in place, or a sound posture. Tell us a little bit about the 5 steps which make up NIST. Tell us what NIST means, N-I-S-T.
Thanks, Patrick. So NIST is a National Institute of Science and Technology. They are an organization that's been around for 50 plus years. They do a lot of different benchmarks for a lot of different organizations across many industries. In our case, we're looking right at cybersecurity. There's one particular framework that they've come out with that's been adopted by many industries. It's what you're looking at here. It's called the Cybersecurity Framework. It's really built for critical infrastructure, but a lot of other organizations have adopted it because it's really smart, and it applies to senior leaders, business owners, IT strategic leaders, as well as practitioners. And the whole idea here is, now that we've talked about risk and we've come up with a risk strategy, now we need to get practical. And how do we apply that risk strategy into a cybersecurity program? And that program is what we're talking about here with this NIST framework. And by the way, one of the things Patrick and I are working on, and greatly appreciate being under the tutelage of Patrick in his new role as the Chief Product Officer, is revamping our security matrix. And we are aligning our service providers into these categories to help it make it easier for each one of our partners to understand where to position different services. And again, just like Patrick said from the very beginning, the whole goal is to shift away from products and thinking more about services and solutions that we can provide to our customers. And doing this helps us avoid getting into the weeds when we talk about cybersecurity. So now NIST, this framework is all about, you must start with identify. And in the identify phase, you're going through that risk assessment process, you're performing vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, compliance assessments, security assessments, architecture reviews, all of those kind of things where you're identifying the risks to an organization on a business level, a strategic level, and a technical level. And then from there, you're defining the protect capabilities. And in the protect phase, you have all of the things that you are familiar with, your firewalls, your access controls, your network segmentation, so on and so forth. And then from there, you move into the detect phase. And the detect phase is just as you might expect. That's where we do the threat event monitoring, the log management, the event correlation. Incident response comes in the next phase of respond, which is fed by detect. And then all of these should be a feedback loop, which then define the recover phase. And in recover is where we define disaster recovery as a service, backup as a service, continuity planning, so on and so forth. These are all the concepts of the framework, and the framework is meant to be a living, breathing program so that when something fails, like protect fails, which it will, it should inform the detect teams and the response teams to make adjustments to the protect phase. So, and rounding this all out, there needs to be a leader over this entire program that's making sure that it is a living, breathing program to help customers face the 21st century threats.
Fantastic. So today, Dominic, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about each of the different areas, starting with identify. We've kind of differentiated identify into what goes into actually understanding what our general plan is. How do we know how vulnerable we are? How do we know if what we've done already is adequate? How do we understand that whatever compliance requirements are out there exist? And so what we've done as we split this out into general cybersecurity consulting, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, we always hear about the pen test, compliance readiness, virtual CISO, virtual security officer, phishing simulation, awareness training, and business impact analysis. So this is really preparing for the battle in not so many words. But let's just talk a little bit about general cybersecurity consulting. We've got several providers here that do a terrific job. You mind just going over them real fast, Dominic?
Sure. I mean, there's a whole suite, and they all have different specialties, and they all have different experience. And what's really cool is that they all bring different skills to the table. So, for example, Greenhouse Data, they are really experts at migrating to the cloud. So when a customer needs to move to the cloud, it's not the same thing. It requires a whole different set of expertise in not only managing the infrastructure, but in building the right security posture and tools and awareness. And so somebody like Greenhouse Data can take those legacy environments and move them up into the cloud, and at the same time provide that general consulting around, as they're moving to the cloud, these are some of the considerations you should take. These are some of the things you should implement. These are some of the folks you should perhaps hire. This is some of the expertise that you need to have on your team. And if we look at somebody like Thrive, for example, they absolutely also include the same concept of security consulting, and they do security readiness assessments, where as they go through the implementation of their services, they work with their customers to understand at a very general level, what is your security posture today? What does your architecture look like? Where would you like to go to tomorrow? Then if we move into somebody like Quest, right, we're talking the same thing, and even perhaps more on steroids, where they have a very agnostic point of view. They have experience across several different industries, several different product areas, and can provide a full, robust suite of consulting services. And then not singling out a whole bunch of these, because there's a big list here, and just for the sake of time, I'll go to one more, just because I think it's a hidden gem that most folks may not be thinking about. And we're thinking about Flexential. And Flexential has acquired years ago a great security consulting practice, and they have really deep bench of security consultants that you should consider bringing to the table. And then finally, just rounding out a couple of those, IGI provides excellent advisory services, and their whole focus is, from a general security consulting practice, how do we help customers think about security today? How do we help them move into tomorrow?
Right, and I think that's the most important thing to understand about cybersecurity consulting. These are people that you call maybe on a one-time basis, maybe on a repeated basis, but these are really more your strategists to come in, see what you've done, see what your situation is. The only difference really between you, Dom, and them is they obviously want you to choose them.
Yeah.
Where Dom, you're third-party agnostic, you don't have a dog in the hunt, but they are very good at seeing the forest through the trees, so to speak, as opposed to being, just one product focused.
You got it. Exactly right.
Next, we go to vulnerability we're still on the last slide. Vulnerability assessments. One of the things that I kind of noticed when we were going through here is IBM is pretty much all over the place, which is, I guess, to be expected. But AT&T and CenturyLink and Verizon, those guys appear on an awful number of slides, as you'll see here today. Explain to us why our partners would consider putting a phone company in front of some of their most strategic accounts for cybersecurity.
Awesome question. So I'm glad to break into that one, because hopefully everybody out there can think about, we are in the age of that, but AT&T and CenturyLink especially, and if we look at Verizon, right, but those companies, especially AT&T and CenturyLink, are really separating themselves from that idea of being just a telco. They offer a robust suite of services. And if we look at AT&T, for example, and we think about vulnerability assessments, they have an organization called Digital Defense, which is an industry leader in their vulnerability assessment technology and the way that they approach that by incorporating a whole bunch of different threat intelligence feeds, doing some really interesting patented technologies patented approaches that they use to understand vulnerabilities in an environment. And it's super easy and quick to quote. And they have a global scale and capability. So either of those two providers is much more than telco. They have a full suite of security services, and really it depends on your customer base. If your customer is already a CenturyLink customer, maybe they just don't know that CenturyLink has a full security portfolio that we should be talking about with them.
And
Same,
vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean pen testing. So we're going to talk about that here in a second.
right.
Vulnerability is more about, just kind of asking questions and getting feedback from the customer, right?
Exactly, exactly. Understanding your exposure, going back to that idea of identifying those critical assets, identifying the exposure of those assets to threats. That's what vulnerabilities mean.
And I think one of the coolest tools we have is a tool by IGI, which is literally an automated tool. You put it in your environment called Nodeware, and it literally scans your environment and kind of gives you, and it's not a pen test. It just says, all right, based on what I see in your network, here's where you have some potential risk.
And it's a great lead. It's they can set it up for 2 weeks free trial for your customers. It's a very low cost option, and it leads to other sales and other conversations about the advisory services that IGI brings to the table.
All right, so if you go through a vulnerability assessment and you talk to your general cybersecurity consultant, and they recommend that you do a pen test, let's talk real fast about the providers we have that can do a penetration test or a pen test.
So this is for some of the folks on the call here have heard me get on my soapbox about this one. If you hear of a penetration test, I would encourage everyone to take a step back and ask your customer, why are they asking for a penetration test? Is it just to do a compliance checkbox? Because at the end of the day, a good penetration test is there and it's defined to uncover new vulnerabilities or validate assumptions about a security program. And if a customer wants to buy a cheap pen test, or if we are helping them drive towards a cheap penetration test, then all we are doing essentially is all the customer is buying is a false sense of security. So the reason we're showing these players here is that these are top shelf penetration test folks. And what they bring to the table is advanced expertise, advanced people, advanced knowledge. And so the idea of doing a penetration test really means, how do I act with manual techniques, not automated tools, vulnerability assessments that are all about automated tools. That's just the starting point of a good penetration test. So when we lead with somebody like IGI, for example, with penetration testing, you're talking about folks that come from the DoD space, that have worked against large organizations, and essentially can guarantee that they're going to get into any organization, because there is, in my view, no organization that's impenetrable. So there is a very clear difference between penetration test providers, and we have several in our portfolio, and even some that aren't listed here. Just for the sake of for time, we'll keep moving on.
Yeah, and Strictly on Security was an interesting one to me because they were one of the keynote speakers at Partner Summit last year in Denver. And he was hired by a bank and challenged to hack an ATM machine and get out cash. And it would take him 3 days, and he had cash, like a couple $1,000s in cash. It was nuts.
Yeah, spitting right out of the ATM.
It was nuts. Now we talk about compliance readiness, because we know that being ready from a technological perspective is good, but if you don't pass compliance criteria, things like PCI, HIPAA, GDPR, CCPA, all of those things, it can still hurt your company's ability to operate. We have literally, I was surprised how many providers we have that are willing to roll up their sleeves and make sure that you're compliant. But we have one in particular, RSI, Renaissance Systems Incorporated. Those guys not only will check off your compliance, but they'll actually generate the paperwork that you need to show the auditors that you are compliant. I mean, that's taking it to the new level.
No, it's fantastic, and it's an automated tool set, and it's online. It's a software as a service platform, and the real value there is that the customers are able to collect the information one time. RSI works on behalf of the customers to collect that information, to load it into that tool, and then they can report to their senior leadership, to external auditors. They can even capture third-party vendor assessments all within that same platform, and very effectively manage their risk over time. And even further, they can assign different tasks within that platform to different members within the organization. So not only do you have one platform that manages all of that information, but now you've also got a workflow management platform where you can assign different tasks, you can track their remediation over time, and you can report on all of that. That's tremendously valuable for organizations, and especially for senior leaders that are trying to understand, where are we at today? Where do we need to go tomorrow? And when we get to tomorrow, how do we measure the progress that we made? That's what RSI brings to the table. And then they can also wrap it up with excellent advisory services.
Yeah, and there's a couple new logos I saw there I wasn't super familiar with. I saw Allgress showing up there. I saw TierPoint, which I think of more of a data center, right? I see Rackspace, which again I thought of as more of a technology provider, Masergy, and then back to the Flexential popping up again. I think it's very interesting to see these guys, hard push into the political elements of cybersecurity, not just the technological ones.
You got it, Patrick. And I know just for the sake of time, we'll keep moving along here. I want to give a shout out to Keith Strong. Hello. It's great to see your name out there. I see your question. How often should compliance and pen tests be performed? It all depends really what regulatory framework or what compliance mandates there are for each one of your customers. But a good recommendation, especially for penetration tests, in fact, I'll take a step back. I would never recommend a penetration test unless the customer has already gone through and implemented some sort of formal risk assessment and risk management program where they've understood their critical assets, and they've defined those protect, detect, respond capabilities and implemented that as a program. Once they've implemented it, then is the right time for a pen test. Oftentimes we see customers asking for a penetration test and they're not ready for it because they don't have those other things in place. Then they get a 30-page report and there's nothing for them to do about it because they have many other things on their plate. So timing on a penetration test all depends on where the customer is in their life cycle. Now, different compliance requirements offer different timelines about when those should be performed. A compliance readiness assessment, which is what we're talking about here, is what comes in before any of those other activities around penetration testing or a compliance certification. So the whole idea is getting prepared for compliance, and that's what the compliance readiness assessment is.
Yes, and I just also like to offer the audience one quick piece of advice. If you have a 10 o'clock appointment in 24 minutes, you may want to push it back because Dominic and I are going over today. That we have so much to cover and we don't want to cut it short. So if you have to miss, just know that the rest of this that's being recorded after the hour that you have to jump is going to be uploaded to YouTube, and we will make these links available to you. Next, Dominic, let's talk a little bit about virtual CISO and why that's important. I think in today's environment of I don't know, I just saw that the unemployment report just came out. It's like 2 or 3%. It's like nothing. And if you're a chief security officer, I think the employment is like negative 50%. Like you can't find these people, which makes virtual CISO that much more important because we just talked about compliance. Some of these compliance audits you can't pass unless you have a CISO sign the document, and you don't have a CISO. So tell us about the providers that can help us overcome that gap.
Yeah, the whole challenge with customers is just like Patrick was saying. I mean, the biggest one is that the CSOs they tend to stay in the job for about 18 months because they are so hard to find. They are constantly recruited and constantly poached, and more importantly, CSOs typically have very industry-specific knowledge. So there may be CSOs that are really good in the financial space, but they're not very familiar with the HIPAA space, for example, or healthcare, I should say. So the idea of a virtual CSO program is that just like with other MSSP services that we offer, you get economies of scale as a customer. You're able to leverage any of these providers that offer excellent advisory services in that CSO capacity. They can act like that CSO to sign on the line that Patrick was just talking about. They can guide the program. They can manage and work with the CIO to ensure that the effectiveness of the security program is in place. And the virtual CSO is not just one person. They can reach out to their entire team that has industry expertise across different verticals. So there may be a whole team of folks that know about the financial space, the healthcare space, the retail space, so on and so forth. And that collective knowledge is what the customer gets when they buy virtual CSO services. And it's really that senior advisor coming in, bringing practical wisdom and practical insight in order to help drive that security program for that organization.
Yeah, it's also interesting to note that a lot of our sales last year in security clumped around the vCISO spot, which kind of ranged between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, which I guarantee you no one's going to find a CISO for between $5,000 and $10,000 a month. And you have access to a team of experts as opposed to one guy with one person's perspective and one person's experience, like you just mentioned about.
You got it.
Talk to us a little bit about business impact analysis. This is one of the areas where, just in full disclosure, I was a little fuzzy saying, what does that mean? Does it mean if we get hacked, like what's the impact to the business? Like, I'm not quite sure even what this means.
Well, that's one way to think about it for sure, Patrick. And the idea, this is a very formal approach to risk management. And it essentially lives in the identify phase. and essentially should be, and it doesn't happen as often as it needs to, but essentially should be the driver for all security initiatives. Now, it needs to be formalized, so it does take time and effort, and that's why we have great providers that can bring this to a customer. And we can think about ransomware very specifically. But a business impact analysis is, if we go back to the risk management program process, the idea is, again, identifying those critical assets, assigning the value, identifying the threats, the exposure to those threats, and then coming up with countermeasures. So business impact analysis is all about identifying critical assets, and if we lose those critical assets, what happens to our organization? A couple of very quick examples. So DDoS, right, distributed denial of service, we'll talk about that in just a second, is an attack on availability. So a smart organization, or an organization approaching things smartly, would look at their e-commerce environment and say, what would be the impact to our organization if we lost internet availability for X amount of time? How much money would we lose for that period of time? And now once that analysis is performed, then they define how much money should we spend protecting that internet presence, as an example. A whole different angle of approach is ransomware. So let's say, this is us running a business impact analysis. Okay, let's assume all of our data has been compromised, all of our data has been encrypted, and we have to go and pay ransomware if we want to get it back or not. We have to make that decision. Business impact analysis would take a look at how long can we survive without having that data. So that's what a business impact analysis will do, is it will define where do you need to implement the right countermeasures that are equal to the right amount of risk that you can accept as an organization. It's a very formal approach, and we have mature players that can provide excellent services for that function.
That's awesome. Now, you talked about the mitigating risk and doing what you can do. At the end of the day, no matter how sound a plan you go into this game with, you always have the human element. Talk to us a little bit about phishing services, where you can actually pay different providers to come in and basically stress test your people.
It's the weakest link. It continues to be the weakest link, Patrick. And strictly on security, that's one of our lead players in that space. And it's the idea here is really simulating, because phishing is now the most common attack avenue, or I should say one of the most common attack avenues, and I would rank it as the most common. What it means is that someone has done their homework, whether it's a person, whether it's a nation state, and then they target an organization or an individual within that organization, and they send them emails, and they hide emails, and they attempt to get the user to either click on a link in the email or open a file that is in that email. And in either case, there is typically malware either embedded in that file or at the website that user goes to visit. And so the idea of phishing training is to help users become more aware of what those very cleverly crafted emails look like, how to take a look at them and how to peel them apart, and how to be aware of things you should and should not click on, and how to operate within this space of humans being targeted. So that's what the idea of phishing programs are. And again, we have a lot of different suppliers that provide solutions around that space to help that security awareness training function.
Yeah, Strictly on Security is actually one of the providers we are using at Telarus right now to have that we're paying to phish us. I got a very clever one yesterday. I was wondering how it got through. It was basically an Outlook email saying, "Hey, Patrick, you have 5 emails that are suspicious that we think are phishing emails. Click here to see which ones they are." And I moused over that link. Sure as heck, man, it was a phishing link. So fishermen even try to mock other pseudo fishermen. It's pretty crazy. But a lot of great things going on. Again, some of the usual suspects: IBM, IGI, but Claro was in there, and that's one I didn't expect to see. So interesting to see the gains they're making there. Also, to get compliant, you not only have to be technologically sound, but you have to have training for your employees. Like, tell us about the providers we have that will come and teach your people how to do it the right way.
Yeah, and this actually is probably the easiest entry point for anybody out there and talking to their customers. It's a very quick sale. You can turn around very, very fast, but it's really all about asking your customers, how do they ensure that their users understand security and not from a deep level, all the crazy nuances that we're talking about here, but how do they even know about phishing? What are they doing from a formal approach to, as an end user? Because at the end of the day, when I think about military terms, I think of the end users as that frontline Marines, right? They are the first line of defense. Forget about all the technology that customers have deployed to try and protect themselves. The end user is not only the most vulnerable, but they can also be the most protective part of your organization as long as they're well trained. And that's why awareness is the quickest and easiest conversation. And so just asking the question about, do they have a security awareness training program today? Would they like to learn more about security awareness? Because it is the most effective thing that you can do to improve the security posture. And from there, the rest of your security can be built more strongly.
All right, moving along. That's just identify. Let's get into protect. Now we start to get into a little more of mobilizing for battle. In protect, we're actually talking about proactive things that we're going to do. And some of the elements that make up the protect segment of the framework include managed security services, or MSS. That includes firewall, web, and email protection. We've got global DDoS protection, endpoint protection, managed cloud firewall, web application firewall, privacy and data protection, zero trust and software-defined perimeters, microsegmentation, mobile enterprise management solutions, remote user VPN, patch management, secure access. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of stuff, Dom. Let's jump right into probably the most common one, and that's the managed security services. Those are the gateway devices that we're putting out on our customers, basically their physical perimeters, that is protecting the things that they do most, using the internet, their websites, and their email.
You got it. And even here again, right? And this is what is so beautiful about our partner community and our supplier portfolio, and what Patrick and I are going to be working on here to make information in the near future with tools that Patrick is helping develop. The whole idea is that you are able to go into your customer base and bring in very niche providers, or move all the way up to an extreme provider like IBM, for example, that can provide a full suite of services, right? So the whole idea here around protect is that we're looking at two things, really. We're looking at protecting things coming into our organization as a customer, and then we're also looking inside of our organization and protecting people and systems from doing bad things. So there's a whole conversation around all of that we don't need to get into right now, but the short version is, firewalls, all of your perimeter protection is designed to keep things out. And then when we think about zero trust networks, we think about remote access on steroids. We're talking about how to watch users and how to ensure that systems are communicating only with known entities and are only doing the right things that they're authorized to do. So protect is it's a very important step, but it's not an easy problem to solve for, which is why we have a full suite of suppliers that provide very different services what the customers look at. As one quick example, if we talk about Vigilant, Vigilant is a to me, if anybody's asking for antivirus out there, we should immediately be having a conversation about Vigilant. And we can get into that at a different point in time. But Vigilant, as just one example of many, in this case, is very excellent at endpoint protection and very excellent at active response on that endpoint. But it requires your customers to be in the right mindset to accept that philosophy and accept that approach. And some customers might not want that. They may only want to have an endpoint client that's going to do detect and not just protect. And so we can help you have that conversation. The whole point is that across this entire protect category, we have services that are very, very extreme DoD level quality of services like Vigilant, all the way down to simply detect and respond to your customer. So a lot of different things we can bring to the table.
So one of the reasons why I broke this out into native, and you did a great job of highlighting Vigilant, I mean, that's like all they do. And they use their own technology. Third-party service management, these guys do a fantastic job, but they use other folks' technology. And so on the next slide, we can kind of see how those third-party providers kind of break down in between some of the most popular offerings out there, and those being Fortinet, which obviously is the most popular, but you also have Palo Alto, Cisco Meraki, Mimecast for email security, and Proofpoint. Tell us a little bit about the differences. And this is one of the slides. I've actually screen captured this slide and sent it to some friends, because when I'm sitting at Telarus watching the Ask an Engineer GLIP room, which is our internal method of saying, hey, who's got this? I can't tell you how many times someone says, hey, how do we get Proofpoint? How do we get Palo Alto? How do we get Fortinet? And this is like the FAQ slide of almost everything of Security 101, where a lot of agents get their first couple questions from their customers saying, hey, I just bought some new Fortinets. Well, maybe we can have one of our providers come in and manage them for you.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole conversation is really, what is the customer trying to achieve? If you're looking for best-in-class technology, we're talking about Fortinet, Palo Alto, in terms of perimeter protection, deep packet inspection, unified threat management, those kind of things. And then it depends on what level of service is the customer looking for. Do they want full management? Do they want co-management? Do they want to manage the technology themselves? And so that's where we really help you with your customers understand which one's the right fit, which one makes the most sense for the problems that they're trying to solve for, and then we get into what product makes the most sense.
Awesome. Well, moving right along to actual firewalls into cloud and web application firewalls. Tell us a little bit about the difference between a cloud firewall and the web application firewall. And I have the Imperva logo there. I don't mean to infer that these providers, AT&T, Green Pages, QTS, etc., Phoenix Snap, I don't mean to imply that they're Imperva partners, but their Encapsula product was built specifically for web application security. Tell us a little about what I think, and if correct me if I'm wrong, cloud firewall is more where you can manage all traffic coming to and cloud, or coming to and from a cloud asset like a website or something like that. Where web application firewalls, maybe you're building an app, maybe you're QuickBooks in the cloud, and you want to make sure that your QuickBooks application, the thing that sits on top of that technology pyramid we talked about earlier, stays protected from bad guys.
Exactly. And there's a again, number of different providers that we bring to the space in this area. So managed cloud firewalls, we're thinking about, does the customer have a collection of internet circuits that they want to aggregate up to a central location within a particular geography, a region, or does the customer have existing MPLS networks from a particular supplier, like a CenturyLink, for example, or an AT&T, and do they want to just have an internet ingress egress through that firewall? So that's what we think of when we think about cloud firewalls. It means fully managed by the provider. It means the customer doesn't have any equipment on-prem other than their SD-WAN technology, for example. Their SD-WAN connections may all want to coalesce up to those cloud gateways, and we have suppliers that can do those gateways multi-regional within one country or across the globe. So we're really talking about efficiency, and we're providing that security stack within all of that to the cloud firewall capability. When we think about web application firewalls, that's a little bit more specific, and we're really talking about looking at and inspecting traffic coming into that customer's environment, into their web infrastructure, and really looking at certain characteristics to make sure that the bad guys aren't trying to come in with very advanced techniques that we don't need to get into right here.
Excellent. Now, taking that kind of a step further, we're talking about DDoS, which isn't necessarily a bad guy sneaking in. It's basically them bringing the big log to the door of your castle and trying to just freaking ram the door in. And they're there, and everyone knows they're there, but they're like, hey, we're here, but can you stop us? Imperva has been one that it always comes up because they really have an industrial strength global DDoS network that they've put in place that can withstand North Korean attacks and state-sponsored attacks. And so basically what I did on this slide is I included just a little diagram picture where you would actually have the traffic going out of the internet just regular, but when the traffic is coming in from the internet, it actually reroutes through an Encapsula router that Imperva is using to protect you from all incoming DDoS attackers.
Exactly right, Patrick. I mean, this is a big story that most customers should be thinking about. I mean, they are in some way, shape, or form, and we have, we've got Cloudflare, for example. We've got all kinds of providers that really know how to handle these problems. So the biggest attack that we've seen so far in the marketplace is about 1 terabit per second. Wow. There is no way that customers can handle that on-prem, right? There are some folks that still buy and still believe that, either number one, we're not a target, or number two, we can handle it with our edge firewalls that have built-in DDoS protection. And what do they have? A gig circuit, maybe a 10 gig circuit, 10 gig waves, maybe 100 gig waves in some of our big customers. It's really pretty much impossible to deal with those type of attacks if an attacker wants to bang it on your front door with that kind of traffic. You can't handle it. So these providers, what they do is they immediately siphon that traffic away from your front door. They clean out all the bad traffic, and then they send you back to good, clean traffic. And so each one of them offers it a little bit differently. CenturyLink, for example, very massive global scale, very massive capacity. Cloudflare, the same story, massive capacity, massive global scale. And the whole idea here is that is exactly what you need to have. Sorry about that noise. I was trying to dial in because I saw Arvin telling me that I have a bad connection. So I'm trying to make it on my desk line. But yeah, the whole short story is that, what your customers need to understand is that DDoS attacks are super easy to execute. Anybody can go out underneath the dark web and hire these botnets, throw a whole bunch of traffic against a customer, and it's a very real problem. And so this goes back again to that business impact analysis. How important is your internet presence? How do you want to protect the internet presence? And by the way, if any of you out there are selling backup circuits, that right away tells you that you likely have a lead for a DDoS customer, because that tells you that for them, their internet presence is important enough for them to buy redundancy. And that means they're protecting their availability. And that's what DDoS is all about.
Awesome. Let's move on to endpoint protection. We have a lot of vendors here, very similar to the firewall aspect. Endpoint protection is more than just a firewall. It's literally things like artificial intelligence, anti-ransomware, EDR and MDR, and exploit prevention at the edge. And for the providers that I saw come up and up and up again, actually 5, were Sophos, Cylance, Carbon Black, CrowdStrike, and Symantec were kind of the leaders. And this includes all things like antivirus. And this isn't necessarily a hardware that sits out there, right? We're talking about software that's running in your system. I refer to it a lot like, when you buy a dog and put it in your house, your dog sniffs or hears something weird, it starts barking. So this is software that's trained to watch your network and watch your edge and look for stuff that just doesn't look quite right and to bark. Is that accurate, Dominic?
Bark and then maybe sometimes bite, like in the case of Vigilant. Or in Carbon Black. So Vigilant is a standalone solution. That's just one example. And then if we look at Carbon Black, we have several suppliers, as you see there, that in different ways, they offer either deploying the technology in that bark mode, and they can also add a few triggers and put it into bite mode as well. So here again, it comes down to having more of an intelligent conversation with your customers, which we at Telarus can help you with, right? Lean on us. We'll jump in, roll up our sleeves, have those conversations with your customers. Endpoint security is a must, and it is something customers have tried to do in the past. They've bought point solutions, and they have had trouble because those point solutions may not speak with other solutions that they already have in their environment. So the whole idea here is building a holistic solution set, and with endpoint protection, it should speak to the network components. And there should be a SOC that's looking at a security operations center team that's looking at all of those tools information, listening to all of that barking from those dogs, and then pulling that together and either advising the customer on where they need to bite or automatically allowing some triggers to get in place on the Carbon Black or on the Cylance platforms or on the Vigilant platforms to go ahead and not only bite, but go ahead and take off the leg of that attacker and neuter it in the spot, if I can continue to badger that analogy.
Yeah, Arvin in the text just correctly mentioned that Vigilance MDR service can include McAfee endpoint protection with active control as well. So a lot of bite left there. Looks like somebody just attended an advisory council with Vigilant in the room. I don't know.
You got it. And let me actually tease that out a bit more just to be really specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
While it does have the McAfee logo over the top, it is not the same McAfee product that can be bought in the marketplace. So the whole solution set that they bring to the table is built on Intel's data exchange layer technology. So the Vigilant capability is at a hardware level. And it is software that lives within the hardware level, but it has the hooks that are that deep. Much more robust than any other McAfee product that's out there.
Excellent point. All right, moving right along. I know we're already behind, but we're going to try to get through here. Now we're in the detect mode. And you just mentioned earlier that, when the dog is barking, that needs to go to a security operations center. This is really where the security operations center and all of the other things like it sit in the detect phase of the framework. And that includes intrusion detection and prevention, um, security log monitoring, SIM monitoring, advanced threat hunting, and this is where things start to get pretty cool, where you have machine learning, AI, things that you're actually putting in the network to actively look for bad guys. It kind of reminds me a lot of the movie Matrix, where the Sentinels are, trolling the network looking for the humans.
Yeah,
Good.
this is this is where what do we call it? The
Rubber meets the road.
rubber meets the road. Thank you, Patrick. That's exactly where I was trying to go. So the whole idea is that this is the biggest challenge customers have today. Again, they bought a lot of point solutions. They have tried to do the right things by listening to suppliers and thinking that this product might work. But at the end of the day, there is no silver bullet. So this idea of detect is, the reality is, it takes seconds to minutes to compromise organizations, weeks to months to discover it. And so how do we change that problem space for customers? Well, we bring better tools, we bring better capabilities, better people, technology to solve for that. And so we have a whole bunch of suppliers that offer, as you see here, a whole suite of services. Advanced threat detection, not an easy problem to solve for. We need to start using machine learning. Cloud security monitoring, that's a very specific problem that's not easy to solve for. And so when we have customers in hybrid environments, how do you manage and how do you understand the threats happening within your environment on-prem as well as in the cloud? And then how to use an incident response team, know which ones you need to respond to more quickly. Well, you can't do that without a good holistic view. And that's what we talk about when we're bringing in these premier service providers, doing managed detect and response, managed endpoint protection, all kinds of services that we bring to the table. And these rely on log management in many cases. In other cases, it relies on capturing network traffic.
Right, so let's talk a little bit about detecting an intruder using both things from MSS, which of course we've already learned, managed security service. Those are your Fortinets and those type of devices. We've got AT&T in there, and I've got the little Alien Vault next to them, because Alien Vault is really one of the reasons why AT&T is such a strong player in this field. They went out and bought them, but everyone kind of has their dance partners. But then you have the people that have really spent a lot of money building their own really cool products. And the three that come to mind are Cybersecurity, Vigilant, and IBM. I mean, those guys really excel at intrusion detection. But hey, sometimes you don't need a bazooka to kill a fly, right? I mean, it's just, you have to have a proportional defense and a proportional response to what you're trying to fight.
You got it. And I'm just going to give a quick shout out here, a quick illustration of customers and where they're at today. So Cybersecurity brings in advanced threat detection, and they can work with alongside, if your customer has already bought some sort of event correlation system, or what we call SIEM solutions, security information and event management. If they've already bought something like that, Cybersecurity can sit alongside of that, provide additional algorithms and better information to help the incident response people spend their time more effectively. And that's all about detection. Back to the customer's philosophy and their mindset, if they want a service provider that can actually provide the protection piece, going back to the idea of barking, not just biting, now we're talking about adding Vigilant, because Vigilant is that whole proactive detect and respond capability. And that's the idea there, is capture traffic, see things in real time, whether those are processes living on the workstation, whether that's traffic moving across the network, identify them in real time with active threat hunting team, and then respond to it in real time. And of course, IBM, we know they've got a fully robust portfolio. And then as you move over to the right side, you see a full suite of other service providers that bring a whole different approach to the way that they provide advanced services to the customers. At the end of the day, what we are hoping to help our customers understand is that this idea of detect is a tough problem to solve for. We have many different ways to solve for it. It all depends on their life cycle and their appetite for what they are trying to do in terms of defending and responding to those active threats.
And I love what you just said. If they've spent money and they're doing something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a binary proposition. It could be a layered, blended approach. Moving on, you just mentioned security log monitoring or SIM monitoring, security information and event management. It just seems like Cybersecurity, IBM, IGI, Vigilant, when I talk to these people, I almost feel like I'm in a military boot camp or something. I'm getting ready to go fight some people. Like those people, like they don't mess around. They are very, very purposeful in what they do, and they love their jobs, and they love hunting bad guys, because it's not about finding the bad guys; it's hunting them down and killing them. I mean, those guys are really up to the task.
They are, and again, this is really what separates them, and this is the differentiators, and this is again, as a partner out selling to your customers, this is your value prop, right? The fact that you can bring in each one of any of these suppliers, and they all bring different approaches. You know, whether the customer has an environment that lives within CenturyLink or not, whether the customer has an existing SIEM solution or not, we can solve for all of their different problems, and we can provide different levels of expertise depending on what the customer is looking for. So when you talk about military terms, you know, in Cyberx or IGI and any of these companies that are built from the DoD mindset and servicing that industry, right? They've got very advanced capabilities that are second to none. And so it all depends again on the customer's appetite, where they're trying to go, and what they're trying to do today. And at the end of the day, in my view, customers should not be trying to buy these products and deploying them themselves. Instead, they should be buying them as a service. So this idea of security log monitoring, security information and event management is all about how do we detect when something bad happens, how quickly can we contain it and respond to it, right? And eradicate it from our environment. And the limited security staff customers have should spend their time on consuming the information out of these platforms instead of managing the platforms. And that's why you rely on a Cyberx who brings artificial intelligence, advanced algorithms, or Quest technology management, or Open Systems, who has this capability to provide advanced security operations center services, proactively watching the customer's environment and advising them very specifically on where to spend their time and effort. Not an easy problem to solve for, but you have a full suite of suppliers that you can bring to bear to talk to your customers about how to solve these for.
And here's the thing, when we talk about the blurring of the swim lanes between the traditional channel and security MSPs, I'm sorry, but I've met and seen the solutions from Cyberx and a lot of these other guys, IGI. I will put them up against any one of your hometown MSSPs any day. They will kick us, they kick their trash. I almost said a bad word, Don. They will kick their trash, and you have the access to that. And I guarantee they'll probably do it at a price cheaper than your MSSP. And this is where I get so excited about where we are headed in cybersecurity. We're bringing in the people that are going to win. And when you talk about security operations center, and your local guy has a room with 2 cubes and he's watching, you know, SIM logs come in, I'm sorry, but the SOC providers that we have as a service between AT&T, Cato, Command Link, Symantec, TierPoint, Phoenix Snap, Open Systems, which has an awesome one, and of course, you know, IBM, IGI, the usual suspects. I mean, this is impressive stuff.
You got it, Patrick. Yep. And security operations centers, it's, you know, what you're buying as a customer is, you know, the advanced people, processes, and technology. And some of you out there have heard me talk about this, but this is where customers fail often. They buy good technology and they forget to think about, do we have the right processes? Do we have the right people? It takes the right expertise to know how to manage that infrastructure. It takes the right processes to make sure that the management is done with the right checks and balances. And that's what you get when you buy a security operations center as a service. And each one of these players is a mature player, and each one of them has mature processes and the right people, just like you said, Patrick, 24/7, watching that infrastructure and providing that guidance to our customers.
Excellent. Moving right along. Now it's the fun part. Respond. All right, we are under attack. Let's go fight. Guys are in the castle. All men to arms. We're talking about incident response, containment, and eradication, which include things like active remediation, MSS and endpoint response, active SOC response, advanced global incident response, and active endpoint threat response. This is basically your customer calls you and says, hey man, the bad guys are in. What do we do? All of our data is encrypted. What do we do? What's going to happen? And so we're going to talk a little bit here about, okay, you know, crap happened. Who do I call? And this is what we call incident response, as you see with the guys in our hazmat, cleaning up the mess.
You got it. And this is you know, one of the things that we like to do is we try to help customers be in front of an incident. We like to try and help them know that either one, we have incident response retainer services, but number two, we like to help them be prepared for the eventuality that an incident will happen in their environment. And so each one of these suppliers can provide tabletop exercises, they can provide consulting. Yes, surely we can respond when something bad happens, no problem. That's what they specialize in. But what we prefer to do is help coach our customers and help be in front of those attacks and help them be prepared for when that eventuality occurs. From a risk management perspective, it's all about that business impact analysis. When something bad happens, what does it mean to our organization? How do we respond to it? And that's what these suppliers bring to the table, is advanced intelligence. And there truly is a difference between the different incident response people in the marketplace. There are folks that can come in on site but haven't got a lot of experience, come in as a low-cost provider. I tell you what, when you have an incident going on, you want somebody that's calm, someone that has mature processes, and has definitely the deep expertise of having been there and done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And we have active incidents going on right now where customers are buying those services from us because they are real problems to solve for. And we have happy customers because they are coming and calling us after they've had other suppliers in their portfolio, not through Telarus, but that they went out and bought on the open market and that they found just did not solve the problem for them. So that's really what incident response is all about. You identify what happened, you identify how the bad guys got in, you remove that ability and that avenue, you consult with the customers about how to avoid that in the future, and then you ensure that it's completely removed from the environment through this eradication process.
Yeah, when we were meeting with IGI at the advisory council, one of their engineers told me about an active situation that they were going on right now where their customer got all their data encrypted and they're kind of in a panic. Those guys are very good at figuring things out, at saying, okay, let's take a breath. When's the last time you ran a backup? Let's figure out how to get you back online. Let's figure out what the extent of the damage is, assuming that the crypto payments don't go through, or if you should even pay the crypto payment. I mean, this is really, it's the 911, and these guys are really, really good because, as an agent, even if you're talking to your customers about cybersecurity and maybe they're not ready to buy from you right now, just let them know, kind of as a leave behind, hey, if something happens, call me.
Yeah.
I can bring in some really good professionals to help you get your data back when you get it encrypted because you're not doing anything I'm telling you. But do the leave behind sale, saying, hey, call me, I can help. And if you can be the guy that they call, and then you can go back to this slide and say, hey, I remember Patrick and Dominic talking about, places I can go to get a really good incident response. I mean, that's really the key here and the key takeaway for you guys. Moving along, we're almost done. Recover. All right. So bad guys were here. We figured it out. We restored a backup. We lost some data, but we're not going to die. We're going to talk a little bit now about backing your data up, but not only backing your data up, actually getting your environment back into a usable format, which is disaster recovery, which is really your time to recover. And then going and rebuilding asset recovery. And then, like you said, Dom, continuity planning. Like, what do we learn from that attack? How can we make sure that doesn't happen again? Knock on wood. Take us through a little bit about what it's like to recover from a disaster and the providers that we have that can help people, number one, back up. And this slide isn't a Veeam slide. I keep seeing it everywhere. And most of our providers work with Veeam, which is one of the leading service providers of backup and disaster recovery services. But just take us through our Recover portfolio.
Well, so this is an open door for everyone out there to talk to your customers about. And it really, I mean, the easiest way to talk about this is about ransomware. And you've heard me bring it up a few times very intentionally because it is accounting for the majority of the attacks that we've seen in the past couple of years. And it continues to increase because it is profitable for the cyber criminals. That's the short story. Organizations continue to pay for it. And in my view, as somebody who's extremely passionate about trying to get the upper hand against these bad guys, I want to stop paying the bad guys. I want to stop financing their operations. And the only way we can do that is by stop paying the ransomware. And the only way we can do that is by starting with our customers a conversation about how prepared are you for a ransomware attack? Have you gone through continuity planning? What does it mean today if you all of a sudden got an email saying we have all of your data and it's encrypted? Have you done that assessment to know where your critical assets are, right? And
well, I'm a doctor because I just had a heart attack.
Exactly. And so this is all about, what are you going to do if the bad phone call happens, which is going to happen, or that email comes? Are you going to pay the money? And then by the way, once you pay it, and now you show to the bad guy that you're an easy target, now they're going to say, you may not even get your data back, or if you get your data back, they're going to say, check it out. We still have your data, and now we're going to sell it on the open market. So you need to pay us some more money. So disaster recovery, right? This is what goes on all day long.
Talk about the upsell.
Exactly. So for us, as coaching our customers, helping them be prepared for this ransomware, we have ransomware preparedness exercises we can go through with suppliers, consulting engagements, and then we can define, restore objectives, recovery objectives, and the right disaster recovery strategy. And so that includes backup as a service. And all of these elements are how to mitigate against that ransomware attack, and to give an organization the confidence to say, you know what, we don't care that you've encrypted our data. We'll just wipe our systems and we'll restore our data from X point in time. But they can't do that without the right confidence if they haven't gone through a formal continuity planning and a formal assessment process that these suppliers all bring to the table, and then they help develop that disaster recovery as a service.
Dominic, it just reminds me of the one meme I saw on LinkedIn about a year ago, and it had a picture of some servers, and it says, if under attack, unplug.
Yes.
I mean, that's like their only line of defense. Thank you so much for your time and going through this. We didn't get a chance to touch on everything, but I think we hit the most important points. What I want to do is just talk about Telarus real fast and about our security portfolio. And my dad always said you can tell a lot about somebody by how they spend their money. I think you could also open that up to say you can really tell a lot about a company, especially a master agent, by what suppliers they sign and how they spend their money. As you can see in 2018, we had a lot of new providers come into the portfolio, because that was really when we started to really invest in the cybersecurity practice. But you also saw, again, a lot of Lex kind of find some dance partners and get into the cybersecurity world, where we started seeing them as really a great conduit into some of those actual products that are not monthly MRR stuff, where they're actually the once a year annual license kind of things. And AT&T, Verizon, and CenturyLink have done a wonderful job in kind of aggregating those. But then you saw in 2019, we added some critical ones, during the second half of the year you were here, Don, guys like Cybrix, Vigilant, RSI, Open Systems, Allgress, IBM, Claro, Netrio, Cato, Green Pages, and Stickleon Security. But we've also got a couple of exciting ones coming up, Alert Logic and TrustWave. You want to just tell us a little bit about what we can expect from those guys?
Yeah, so there's a whole suite of services they bring to the table. Alert Logic is really all about, more threat detection, log management, managed scene services, send log data to them, event correlation in real time. TrustWave, assessment services, compliance services, PCI services, those kind of things. So, as well as managed services across the board. So more to come on those two stories.
Excellent. And then just in terms of resources, there is a free security assessment webpage, a link that our partners can get. Can you tell them a little bit about this tool that RSI is making available exclusively to Telarus partners, so they can basically send their customers out a link. The customers go to the link, answer 10 questions, and get an actual report. This acts as a wonderful lead generation tool for security leads.
This is a prime lead generation tool. This is how, and it will, as you use that tool, if you just wanted to memorize a couple of the questions, because we often get asked, what questions can I ask my customer? You can go through that tool, memorize a couple of questions on your own, and if you want to, just not use the tool, and then use those as your lead into how to have security conversations. But this tool itself, it's a free assessment. It can be branded with each one of our partners' logos, and we're going to announce it more formally. You'll hear about it in a couple weeks on another call with RSI, where we're going to talk a lot more about what it is and what it does. But just know that, just like Patrick said, this is an excellent lead generation tool. This is a way to understand on a very strategic level what your customer security posture is today, because at the very end of that assessment, very short assessment, you're asking thoughtful questions, and the customer gets a risk score at the end of it. So really, really cool. And this is just a little tease for more to come in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. And we're going to wrap up today's call by going over a few trends. So we've got a top 10 list of actual sales by dollar amount for each of our security providers. Pretty interesting chart, headed by AT&T, which is just a monster in our portfolio. We sell a lot of stuff with AT&T, but it's interesting to see the blend and how things changed, where NetFortris basically went from nowhere land to second place above Verizon. Tell us a little bit about some of the trends you're seeing, Dominic, in terms of the performance of our. Now, understand, all of these performed more than 2019 and 2018. Just because you lost a position, you could have sold the same amount and lost positions. Everybody saw dramatic increases in 2019 over 2018. But tell us a little bit about some of the story that you see in this slide.
Well, so this is a historical view, and what I see is that what we're going to be, as we move forward, you will see these names move and shift across the board. IGI, for example, they've been doing, just like Patrick said, they've been doing a lot of our virtual CSO advisory services. So we definitely see advisory services on the uptick. It's definitely something our customers are looking for because, as we mentioned, they can't afford those security staff. They can't have the right number of security staff. There's a lot of things they bring to the table. I think we're definitely going to see RSI creeping up on this list quite a bit because they are disrupting the risk management marketplace. And then we're going to be seeing a lot more of Quest. We're going to see a lot more of Thrive. Open Systems, by the way, which isn't on this list, they closed a $106K MRC deal just last December. And there's a big, beautiful story about what they bring to the table. So my story that I'd see from this slide here is that we are definitely going to be moving around, not us intentionally, but the sales are going to be moving around across all these different suppliers. Because as we mentioned earlier, customers have different needs, and these suppliers all bring different specialties to the marketplace that solve for those needs.
Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I'm going to predict that Office Depot drops out of the top 10 because I think they dropped out of the channel. Anyway, moving right along. The tools, we talked a little bit about the security matrix. This is available in your Telarus back office. Just click on quotes, and then it will show you a list of quoting tools. You just select the security matrix. Like Dom said, this is a tool that he inherited. It's a 2-year-old tool. Him and I, as the chief product officer, are working in earnest to dramatically improve this tool and make sure that all of the things that we talked about today are also available in the tool, so you don't have to go back and rewatch this whole thing. Of course, that tool has a mobile app cousin that you can use in the Telarus Partner app. Very, very cool, where you can go through and click the things that you're looking for. Last but not least, if you liked what you heard today, look no further. Dom is coming to a city near you. Dom, this schedule looks like a Rolling Stones concert schedule. I mean, you're basically going to be getting a lot of frequent flyer miles here, bro.
Yeah, but I'm not doing it alone, right? We're leaning on the excellent engineering team that we have at Telarus, and you guys, you'll be able to, if you come to these events, you'll be able to see not only their expertise, but just really what we're trying to do to help you understand these aren't difficult conversations. We're here to help you, but we're also going to arm you with some good tools to make it feel very comfortable having these conversations. So coming soon to a theater near you.
Right, and if you need any help with your website or your newsletter to get your customers thinking about cybersecurity, and in the marketing toolkits area, the back office, we have a whole segment of security, and this goes from PDFs to actual videos that you can send their way. And last but not least, you've been hearing from Dominic today on the call, and he just mentioned the sales engineering team that's behind him. We actually have some sales engineers on the team, Dominic, that are CISSP certified, which is basically the highest level you can get in cybersecurity.
Awesome, absolutely. And Mr. Lupresto, give him a quick shout out. And Josh is working on his. He's almost got it. He's got just a few more things he got to cross the bridge, and then he'll have that certified.
Excellent. And then lastly, we have a question. Wes has a question about how much insurance, cyber insurance, does a company in the medical field need to buy? Or would this be kind of included in a free risk analysis type of questionnaire?
They could be, but that's definitely where you'd reach in with RSI, because RSI has a lot of expertise in working with cyber insurance. They have a partnership. We have other suppliers that work with cyber insurance companies too, but RSI has deep expertise. And that answers the second question. Reaching out to Taylor over at RSI is the answer for that cyber quick check tool.
Excellent. Well, thanks for going through this with me, Dominic. I know we are 24 minutes over time. Doug Miller, the voice of Telarus, we'll go ahead and turn it back over to you and see if we have any more questions and answers, and we'll probably take a couple and get you guys back productive in your day again.
You guys did an amazing job with that presentation. Holy cow, that was a lot of information in just over an hour. Partners are probably sitting there with their heads spinning, wondering how they can access this. This call is, of course, being recorded. It will be made available in your Telarus partner back office. Hopefully later today. It may take us as long until tomorrow to sort that all out and get it ready for you. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, Patrick is taking a lot of this information and putting it together in the blog on the Telarus website. We have a little bit of information to add to that, but you want to use that as a resource as well. You guys did a tremendous job of going through all of the questions as they came in live. We don't have any others to answer, but I did keep a record of those questions as they came in, and if we have anything we want to add to that, we'll of course add that to the blog post or make that available otherwise as well. Good job putting out Dom's traveling info. He's got roadies, he's got groupies, he's got folks hanging around. I don't think he's got merchandise for sale yet, but we might add that too. So be sure and take advantage of Dom's expertise while he's out on the road. Yeah.
Just real fast, if you weren't able to see the slide or didn't take a screenshot of it or don't want to wait for the video to come out, the entire list of events is on Telarus.com/events. That's where I actually pulled all the data to make that slide. So our whole entire calendar is published there. If you want to know if a security bootcamp is coming to a city near you, I also highly recommend the cloud bootcamps. Kobe Phillips is going to be talking a little more about the newest vendor we just signed, actually 2 vendors, and that's Equinix, the world's largest global supplier of cloud connectivity, as well as Stratusworks, which is a workforce as a service platform where your clients can literally load CAD software and other kinds of stuff and SaaSify it and put it in the cloud. That is also published there. And then last but not least, the Brandon Knight and the contact center boot camps, you don't want to miss those either. So if you don't find one in your city, I highly recommend you cash in some Telarus rewards points and get a free plane ticket or get a hotel on us, and make sure you take a 2 or 3 day vacation away from your home office and make sure you attend those. I guarantee, much like today, you're going to come away knowing a lot more than you went in with. And with that, you're going to be able to feel so much more confident about these types of solutions that may not have been in your wheelhouse a month ago.
I had the absolute pleasure of sitting through one of Dom's presentations a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I really came away with from that, and Dom, last word to you here for our call today, but if you wouldn't mind just reiterating, we see so much of this happening in the news, and there's a tendency to want to react quickly and do something rash, but would you just emphasize once again that need to take one step back and evaluate the overall situation before making any rash moves to try to take care of a problem? I think that's a great note on which we should end today.
Sure, and that's really our advising to our customers, and that's each one of our partners helping our customers know that we care about their business first. It's understanding their business challenges first and not trying to solve an immediate need without thinking about how it impacts the overall organization. And that's the way we think about security, and it involves people, processes, and technology. That's what we bring to bear through a vendor-agnostic approach.
Thanks, Dom. Dominique Singer, Patrick Oborn, you can't get any better than that. Thanks, everybody, for being part of our Tuesday call today. We'll be back again next Tuesday with more. Until then, have a great selling week, everyone. Dom, Patrick, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Take care, everybody.